Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Is the recording on? Okay, great. So I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Assembly Public Health and Safety Committee. We'll start by just doing a brief roll call. If we can go around for our members, please.
Randy Solt.
Karen Bronga.
Daniel Voland.
Christopher Constant.
Cameron Perez Verdia. And on the phone, if you could just acknowledge Mr. Rivera, are you there?
Present.
Mr. Martinez, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Great. And we also have up here members from the Assembly Attorney's Office. Would you like to just introduce yourself?
Dean Gates, Assembly Counsel.
Matthew Hurt, Legislative Counsel.
Okay. And then over here on the right, would you like to just introduce yourself for the record?
Sean Case, Chief of Police.
Suzanne LaFrance, Mayor.
Eva Gardner, Municipal Attorney.
Thanks. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to make an opening statement, and then we're going to hand it over to the Mayor and Chief of Police. Good afternoon, everyone. I've called this special meeting in response to the Mayor's recent press conference, where she outlined a plan to address the tragic incident involving a 16-year-old girl in the most recent officer-involved shooting, actions to better understand the recent increase in officer shootings, and take some additional steps to improve police communication, understanding, and accountability. The purpose of this meeting is to provide a space to hear from the mayor and police chief with more detailed information about their plan. We also want to hear from assembly members' ideas on how we as a community can address these critical issues. In moments like these, when tragedy strikes, our community naturally experiences a range of emotions: fear, anger, sadness. Often these emotions can lead to blame. But today I want us to approach this discussion with a focus on balance and unity. We must recognize and honor the complex emotions that many are feeling: the grief and loss experienced by the family of the young girl, the heightened fear and mistrust in our community, particularly among communities of color, as a tremendous burden carried by the men and women of our police force who face incredibly difficult decisions every day. We must acknowledge that this situation is tragic for all involved: the family, the community, and our police officers. It's essential that we support each other as we navigate this difficult time together. As we move forward, there are still many unknowns. The truth matters. We need to examine all the facts and information before any decisions are made. At the same time, it's important to recognize that the frequency of these incidents is out of the ordinary for our community, and it's important to consider taking actions to understand why this is happening. I believe the mayor's proposal for a third-party investigation is a reasonable step. We also need to allow Chief Case and the police department the time and space to respond thoughtfully and respectfully. Chief Case brings a wealth of experience, and we must trust in his leadership as we address these challenges. I want to make clear that today's meeting is a business meeting focused on reviewing the mayor's plan and considering assembly members' ideas. This is not the setting for extensive community comment. However, I recognize the importance of community input, and I'm committed to ensuring that our community has the opportunity to share its concerns, ideas, and feelings. To that end, I'm planning a community conversation on this topic, tentatively scheduled for September 6th. This event will be co-hosted with several community organizations and will provide a respectful space for all voices to be heard. The mayor, chief of police, and other stakeholders will be invited to participate. More details will be available soon, so you can sign up for public safety related email updates at muni.org/assembly. Additionally, I want to inform everyone that I will be leaving some time at the end of this meeting for a few community comments. We do have a few representatives from the family of the 16-year-old girl here, and I will be giving them an opportunity to share some of their thoughts, and there will likely be a couple of other time slots available. But keep in mind, we don't have very much time. In addition, I'm working with a number of other community organizations, coordinating with the mayor and the police department to explore how we can improve transparency, communication, and accountability in our public safety systems. This could include reactivating the Public Safety Commission to play a more significant role in police oversight, looking at models like citizen oversight, and ensuring it's truly representative of our community and has the necessary authority to engage meaningfully in our municipality. So the plan is to use this committee to begin to explore those options and have further conversation about them. As we move forward, my hope is that we can approach these issues with a seriousness and sensitivity they deserve, working together to find solutions that will strengthen our community and ensure the safety and well-being of all Anchorage residents. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the mayor and chief of police The plan today, again, is to do three things. We're going to give the mayor and chief an opportunity to share their ideas and plans. We'll have some questions. Again, the only role of the community in this conversation will be at the very end. And then we'll give a couple of assembly members some time to share some of their ideas that they shared. And we'll have some time to talk about those. And then we'll open it up for a few comments from the audience. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Mayor LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the members of the Assembly and the community here today. The last week has been really, really hard for our community. We will get through this. We have the potential to become stronger, to better empathize with and understand each other, to work together toward a community where everyone feels safe. Reverend Samuel Fiu Unitoa spoke at Saturday's gathering to honor Easter Lifa. He said that we will talk today, we will talk tomorrow, that this is how we can move forward. I believe this is exactly what we must do. Last week, I said I would talk with everyone to listen and learn. I have sat with the family of Easter Lifa, who lost a daughter, a sister, a friend. I have listened to residents of different backgrounds and cultures as they've shared their reactions, their hopes, and their fears. Yesterday, I also met with members of the Anchorage Police Department to listen to their perspectives. As we are here in the Public Health and Safety Committee, I want to stress that it has been a hard week for our APD members too. These tragedies affect all of us. I want to share with everyone here what I shared with members of the department when we met yesterday. I'm here to listen to you. I know the last week has been really, really hard. If my public statements have made it harder, I'm sorry for that. I take my job as your mayor seriously, and I want to support this department. I did not mean my remarks to imply that anyone has prejudged what happened last week. I know officers are placed in difficult and complicated situations every day. I appreciate and respect the hard work you do to keep Anchorage safe. At the same time, I am devastated that our community lost a 16-year-old girl last week, as I'm sure many of you are, because I know these tragedies affect you too. As a parent, it's easy for me to put myself in the shoes of the family who lost a daughter last week. But as mayor, I need to learn how to put myself in your shoes. I'm here to listen and to learn so that I can do a better job supporting you. Public safety is my top priority, which means the Anchorage Police Department and its sworn officers are a top priority. The community's trust in APD has been shaken over these last few months. I am committed to helping you rebuild trust. I want to work with APDA, the chief, and outside experts to ensure that every APD officer has access to the best training and resources. We have an incredible opportunity to work together and with the community, and you are essential to that. You need to be a part of this conversation. I'm here today to listen to what you think about what's going on and listen to your ideas about how to move forward. That is what I shared with our officers. I'm sharing the same words here because I believe it's critical that we are as open in our communication as we are committed in our action. Multiple things can be true at once. Grief for Easter does not undermine support for sworn officers. Support for sworn officers does not undermine a commitment to change. What happens next and the actions that others will now speak to are not about blame. They're about having accurate information so that we can better understand why we are seeing more officer-involved shootings. They are about making sure we know we are doing everything we can to make our community safe. So I will now turn to the chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this time to share some information with this body. When I took over as Chief of Police July 1, I had about an 18 to 24 month plan to address just continual improvement, whether it be technology, whether it be training, whether it be policies. I understand that when we have significant events in the community, that's a catalyst to try to compress that time frame so that we can quicker respond to some of the requests of the community. My perspective comes from the idea that modern police departments require a combination of advanced technology, comprehensive training, and community engagement to be truly effective. Cutting-edge tools such as body-worn cameras, drones, and sophisticated data analysis software can enhance transparency and efficiency. Additionally, continuous professional development ensures that officers are well-versed in the latest law enforcement techniques and cultural competencies. I view the police department as something that has to ever be changing, and we constantly monitor ourselves and challenge ourselves to have the latest policing techniques, the latest technology, so that we can provide the best services. And when I look at the things over the 18 to 24 months originally that I planned to address, there were areas of hiring, training, policies, supervision, discipline, management, and oversight. Now, we've already started some of these processes. We've implemented some things already. And this is a reflection, again, on the continuous improvement of the police department, not a reflection of a long list of things that we think we are doing improperly or poorly, but those steps we need to do to make sure that we provide those best services. If we look at some of the things that the police department is doing in terms of policy development and some of the best practices around the country, by and large, we've already implemented some of those strategies. Our use of force policies were updated in October of 2023, and we've added new elements of de-escalation, policy requirements to try to reduce the use of force, and those things will continue into the future because we have more work to do, and we always do. As we get more technology, we will analyze the technology that's available to us and then work through a process to implement that technology. You know, I've had the opportunity to work in 11 different states to implement various different policy changes, specifically focusing on areas of internal affairs investigations, use of force training, policy manuals, crowd control, academy training, and even tactical operations. And so that experience is what I bring into the development over the next several years, so that we're in line with what we're seeing around the country. And I look forward to this opportunity to get in more depth as to what that looks like, and exactly in each of those 7 categories that I just outlined, what that consists of, and just the areas that we're going to be improving along the way.
Thanks. Well, I'll kick us off. I wanted to hear more about, there was in your press conference, there was a discussion about third party. Can you tell us more about what that would look like, what your time frame is for that? And I understand that's something that's relatively new for us, but if you could give us any more information about how you see that happening.
I'll answer that question if that's okay. So there are 2 outside or third-party investigations that were announced. One would be the normally internal affairs review of what happened, and this is typically an internal APD disciplinary review. That is something that will be overseen by a third party to ensure that is done with full objectivity, just to reassure everyone that this is an APD investigating itself. The second one is a more comprehensive review of APD's policies, training, et cetera, to make sure that APD, and the goal of that is to then produce recommendations for anything that APD could do differently. If there are more tools the officers could have in their toolbox, if their tools could be refined, to find out what those things are. So those are 2 separate outside reviews that would occur. The timeline for them, there's a required timeline for the internal investigation, the internal review, which is, the chief can speak more specifically to what that timeline is. So that one needs to happen very quickly. So right now we are looking to find, figure out who should do that, create a list, and then go from there. The second one is going to be a bit of a longer process. That one will likely require potentially a full procurement process. We're working through that right now because there are charter requirements for how we can get contracts. So we are moving as quickly as we can with sensitivity to process. There will also be aware that there might be a desire for, or there definitely is a desire for community input into one or both of those, but outside third parties might be. So moving as quickly as we can, but not being hasty, because we want to do both of these things right.
Okay. Chief, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so just to remind the body, there's two investigations that happens, and one happens first, and then the administrative investigation, which addresses your question, is second. So once the Office of Special Prosecution completes their investigation, then we're allowed to start our administrative investigation, and that investigation time is 45 days. So from the time that we get word from Office of Special Prosecution, we have 45 days to complete the investigation. So that compressed time schedule that we're talking about is that window. What makes it particularly challenging is since we don't have a date, we don't know if in 2 weeks or 3 weeks that the Office of Special Prosecution is going to get back to us. If they take 3 months, that 45-day window doesn't start for 3 months. So when we're trying to find somebody to help us with that administrative investigation, the start date is an unknown time. We can just give them, when we do have a start date, it's a very short window to come in and complete it.
It looks like I have a few people in the queue. I'm going to have Mr. Vollen be first, Mr. Rivera, and then Mr. Salt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that question and the ability to hear from the mini attorney on that plan going forward. Recently, as I'm sure folks may have seen, myself and Member Rivera and Member Zolotel put 3 specific requests out there in the public forum, things that we would like to see as assembly members going forward and that we would like to partner with the administration on. One of those was just addressed, but I think our request on the third party auditor would be that you interface with this committee, with the Public Health and Safety Committee, and give reports to the legislative branch and let us be involved and let the community be involved. So thank you for your answers on that. I'm going to let Member Rivera speak to the piece on civilian oversight, but I wanted to speak to the crisis now model that has been long a priority of this body, including when Mayor LaFrance was on this body. Standing up the mobile intervention team under APD and the mobile crisis team under the fire department, folks who are trained in behavioral health response and de-escalation is a big priority for us. And I think that we've seen success with those programs in their current limited capacity. I see that we do have Officer Adolph here. I wish we could clone her and have more of her. And so I guess my request and my question is, I guess I want to hear from the administration and from Chief Case your plans going forward with the mobile intervention team. A specific question first. In any of these 6 shootings, was the mobile intervention team dispatched? Why or why not? And what is your vision going forward for building out that mobile intervention team? We've said, we'd like to see it be 24/7 and to be able to be dispatched in instances like these. So I guess I want to hear from you on that, and just a statement from my perspective as well is certainly appreciate the mayor's comments here today, how multiple things can be true at once. And I think what the community wants to see is not a blame game, but best practices in policing. What I worry about specifically with a couple of these recent instances is I don't want to send the message to the community that if you have a loved one in crisis, or if you're a victim of domestic violence at the hands of a loved one, and they're still a loved one, even though they're not treating you well in that altercation. I don't want to send the message to the community, don't call the police because you might lose your loved one. And I think that is, the fear that some people are wrestling with, and that we need to really help the community rebuild faith in our police department. So anyway, your thoughts on the mobile intervention team and how we can be more productive going forward, I think would be helpful. Thanks.
First, I'll address your last statement and work my way backwards. If community members in Anchorage have somebody that's in a mental health crisis, someone that needs help from the police, the Anchorage Police Department is who you call. We have phenomenal officers that engage with people that are in mental health crisis, that are suicidal, quite frankly, homicidal on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And those almost always result in no use of force at all through whether it's crisis negotiation, whether it's MIT, whether it's CIT, or an officer that's responding to the call. We have numerous examples of those on a daily basis, and they're patient, and they're understanding and they're compassionate people. And so I have full trust and confidence in the men and women that serve every day. As far as MIT goes, MIT is just over a year old. We started our expanded program in June of last year. The program is 6 bodies, both officers paired with a clinician, 4 of which are funded originally by this body through alcohol tax, and then this year through operating. One of the mental health clinicians is a grant that technically expired last August, but there are additional funds, so it has carried that position through to this year. And when you have that few bodies in mobile intervention, you can't run 24/7 on 10-hour shifts. There's just not enough people to operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Particularly if one person goes on leave, you have a vacancy. They were brought on board really to accomplish 2 tasks. The first thing was our patrol officers were spending an extended amount of time with those in crisis, and part of the reason why they were spending so much time is our training in the tools that were available to us statewide and within Anchorage really is to transport people to the Providence Psych ED. And that process was taking, in some cases, hours long. And so we wanted to first have mobile intervention out with patrol, responding to calls for service so that they could take those calls off of patrol. And then the second goal was to refer fewer people or transport fewer people to the emergency room. Having a 3-hour time frame to drop people off at the emergency room when they're in crisis means they're either sitting in the back of our car or in the emergency room waiting area, which the officer tries to pick the place that's the least has the least impact on the person. Being in a waiting room when you're in crisis, sometimes that's not the best thing. Also being in the back of a police car for 3 hours waiting to get in is also not the best. But those are really the 2 options we had. MIT has made significant improvements with the department as it relates to mental health. For example, you hope, and the goal was that they would respond to scenes and they could, when they have interaction with those in crisis, they could figure out other alternatives other than transporting. And they're very successful in that. What we didn't anticipate was overall patrol division has reduced their transports by 50%. And that's because they're educating all of patrol division while they're out there doing their job. They've done briefing training to also educate patrol officers some of the options that are available, some of the ways that they can intervene in some of these situations, circumstances, so that we don't have to transport everyone to the emergency room. We then started expanding out to criminal diversion and mental health diversion. So how can a mental health clinician help when it comes to you committed a low-level crime, where we can get them like help for their underlying issue. So either we divert them through mental health channels or criminal diversion. So for example, you mentioned domestic violence. Currently, our mobile intervention team is running a 6-month pilot program where our clinicians have contact with those who have been victimized in domestic violence. They have multiple contacts with them, connecting them to resources, just providing the support that mental health clinicians can provide. That's new to the department. We also hope that that increases the training and the expertise of our officers as well. And we want to expand that to other types of crimes because we think there's a mental health component to a lot of different criminal activity or people that call police for help. Additionally, we are going to start training our mental health clinicians in negotiator training. So negotiators typically will come out when we do a SWAT call out. They're part of that call out team. Over the past couple of years, we've reduced our SWAT call outs dramatically. We have far under 12 a year, which a city of this size is a very, very low number. And the reason is because we dispatch our crisis negotiation team long before we do the SWAT team, and they start the negotiation process to try to resolve it before we even have SWAT members on scene. And that's been very, very helpful. However, even with our crisis negotiators, who are all sworn officers, that's an auxiliary duty for them. So they're patrol officers and detectives and in all different positions throughout the department. We still do not stick them in face-to-face communication when there's a mental health crisis where there's a knife or a gun or something that places higher risk, because their job is to be fully involved in the conversation, not worrying about other tactical things. And so we try to create that space and that distance so that they can work and have more of that personal conversation. So when we talk about adding that training to our mobile intervention teams, we first have to remember that these are master's level clinicians. They are trained to to do residential treatment setting. They're trained to do counseling sessions. We've now adapted them to operate in a police setting. So as we continue to give them more training, their skills and their ability and their comfortability level, because this is a different environment for them, is to be more engaged in those types of calls on the front line. That's not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to put those employees in a position where they're in such an unusual environment where there's guns and knives and other weapons that put them in immediate danger. So we have to work to that level. And it starts with going through the negotiator course so that they have that perspective as well on how to kind of mix their training with kind of the law enforcement aspect to it. So it's a progression. Again, we're just over a year into it, and I think we've expanded from what our original outlook was on the team, and we're going to continue adding more resources. If I had the staffing of officers to pair with them, I could tell you that I could triple the size of the team, and I would have work for them, plenty of work for them to do. They're an extremely valuable asset to us.
And then just that additional piece, I think it is the case, and maybe you could just could confirm that in these recent incidences, MIT was not able to be dispatched. Is that the case?
MIT was not directly involved in these. If you're referring to the 6,
Yep.
Yes, they were not directly involved in them.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have next in the queue, Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just one clarifying question for either Ms. Gardner or the chief, and then I do have some comments in line with what Member Voland stated around the different ideas that Member Zolotow, Voland, and I sent out last week. So with regard to the third-party investigator and third-party auditor, is it envisioned that both of those are just one-off contracts?
I'll take that question. At this time, yes. I will say that there have been discussions about whether there is any kind of ongoing effort that can be made to monitor. I think that a lot of this, what happens next, will just depend on what recommendations are made from that third-party audit. And so I think we'll have more conversations once that third-party reviewer's recommendations are made public.
Great, thank you so much. So I guess moving on to my comments, on top of what Member Voland stated with regard to the third-party auditor, we did, as the three of us, when I say we did recommend that there be an immediate review using this committee as the forum, understanding that a third-party auditor might take a little bit to get on board and to start going through their process. That we do begin an immediate review of non-lethal policies, practices, and training. So I'm hoping that's something that the department is willing to engage in through this committee, and I'm hoping that's something that in future committee meetings we can really start digging into that. The second point on the third-party auditor, aside from the third-party auditor heavily engaging with this particular committee and with the legislative branch, I would also like the third-party auditor to heavily engage with members of the public in various public forums. Those could be things like town halls, virtual convenings, whatever they look like. I think that's something that we are generally supportive of, because this is a long going and a long conversation that we've been having ongoing in our community, and so there are, for better or for worse, community experts on a lot of these issues that we're facing. So moving on to the bulk of my comments, and I apologize, I'll try to be super brief, but this might go a little bit longer than a normal comment. I wanted to talk about one of the other, aside from our comments on the third-party auditor, and aside from the MCC-MIT, also wanted to talk about police oversight. And there's different ways that people are talking about it. So when I say police oversight, civilian oversight, independent review board, I'm basically saying, speaking about the same thing when I say those interrelated terms. So when it comes to civilian oversight, I think there are, and some member touched on this a little bit, I think there are really 5 key elements that are really critical to civilian oversight. One of them is, I'll touch on these 5 briefly, then I'll talk about the 3 different types of civilian oversight, go into budget briefly, and then closing comments. I'll try to be quick. So 5 really critical elements of civilian oversight include independence. So the civilian oversight needs, whatever it looks like, needs the authority to carry out their duties. Jurisdiction, so the independence to actually act and investigate. So what is we talk about jurisdiction a lot. What's the ombudsman's jurisdiction? What's AERC's jurisdiction? So a good definition of what a jurisdiction of civilian oversight is important. Access, so tools to do their job. Do they have access to reports, to data, to whatever that they may need to do their job? Cooperation is critical, right? Agencies need to willingly cooperate with civilian oversight. And then transparency, really open and clear lines of communication. So when I talk about these 3 different models that I'm about to go into, these core critical elements apply to all of those models. So first, review-focused civilian oversight model, really think like quality assurance. So work is mainly done after the official investigations are done. A review-focused kind of model can remand cases back to internal affairs for further investigation. They can hear appeals if folks aren't happy with the internal affairs investigations. Some examples of jurisdictions that have used this type of model are Albany and Indianapolis. The second of the 3 main types of models of civilian oversight is investigation-focused. So that could really replace or duplicate, depending on the willingness of the jurisdiction and rules, etc., internal affairs, and they can conduct investigations independently. So think like an inspector general or hired professional non-police staff who are doing these investigations. There are, so some examples of jurisdictions that use this kind of model are Pittsburgh and San Diego County. And then the third kind of model that's used is an auditor/monitor focused model. So this is really focused on systemic review and change of policies, training, and practices. And it might actively participate or monitor open investigations, but doesn't take over those investigations. So they'll be a partner with internal affairs, but they're not going to take over the investigation from internal affairs. So those are and some examples of jurisdictions that use those models are Denver and New Orleans. So those are the 3 main types of models. There's a hybrid. You can have a combination of 2 or maybe even 3 of those types of models. But those are the main ones that are used by dozens and dozens of jurisdictions around the country. With regard to budget for these kinds of models. So the budget really ranges from, and I just want to, before I go further, just thank the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, NACOL, and then our local community organizations that have done a lot of research on these topics. So for anyone who's interested in learning more, there's plenty of resources and research on the NACOL website. That's www.nacol.org. So going back to the budget. So when it comes to budget, typically a lot of people compare it as a percentage of the police department budget. And typically we're talking about between 0.1 to 1.1% of the police department budget is what it would cost to manage and run a civilian oversight model for the municipality, or really any jurisdiction. So if you look at the local equivalent, APD, their 2024 budget after first quarter budget revisions is 138 million. So if you do that comparison, we're talking about 138,000 for the very low end and 1.5 million for the very high end is what the budgetary cost would be. So, the goal that we have put forward out there is to really rapidly move forward with the implementation of some type of policy oversight that is incorporated into the 2025 budget, preferably in the mayor's proposed 2025 budget, but if not, amended into the 2025 budget and fully stood up by April of 2025, which is, for folks who follow municipal government, that's like super fast for us. But I do think that we are in a crisis and that we need to act like it. Also, this topic really isn't exactly new to the municipality. Civilian oversight and some different kind of models of civilian oversight-ish have been implemented in the municipality in the past, and it's been a hot topic for decades. The last time it was a really hot topic decades ago was in a similar sort of situation that we are now, when there was an officer-involved shooting that really riled up the community. And so I think it's high time that we do get this done, and looking forward to hearing feedback from the administration and figuring out how we can possibly move forward on implementing this idea in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chief or Madam Mayor, do you want to respond at all to the comments?
Okay, a couple of responses. The first thing is I support kind of going all the way back to the very beginning of what Member Rivera was talking about. I am more than happy to offer up a time in a work session to talk about some of the specifically the 7 areas that I'm talking about, some of the changes that the police department has already made, kind of give you that analysis of where we are in terms of national best practices, so that you can understand the efforts that are already being made. I think that the only thing that happens quickly is damage. And when we want to move extremely quickly on something like this, and we're not giving time to the police department to present information that we have, then we risk not allowing the opportunity to become educated and aware about what our police department actually looks like. We have never had a chief of police that has been as open and honest about things that I have. I answer every question. I'm an open book when it comes to the police department. I will share what we're great at, and I will share what we are not doing a great job at and how we intend to change that. And I would love that opportunity. I think that if you take me up on that opportunity and we have outside review of what our police department looks like, you are going to see very similar results with whoever we hire that has expertise in law enforcement, as what I'm willing to share with you. And if we can recognize it and correct it or address it, educate the public on what we do and how we do it, and that's validated by someone outside, I think we have a police department that's being extremely responsive to the community. And I think that holding off, pushing forward on this topic until we have an opportunity to provide information and educate and respond to questions is a good path forward.
Mr. Rivera, did you complete your comments?
I did, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have Mr. Salt in the queue. Mr. Constant, did you indicate you wanted to be in the queue? Yes. Okay. And I just want to note that I really would like to end on time, and I'd like to make sure we have time for some comment at the end. So let's try to end on time. Thanks, Mr.
Okay,
Salt.
try to be brief. Some of my personal thoughts and comments on the events of this year. First, any loss of life is tragic. But I think we're quick to point the finger, and I think we also need to look in the mirror. We all have ownership here. I'm not terribly surprised where we're at, given the long-term struggles we see with the family unit, generalized and disparaging comments and vilification of our law enforcement, violence on TV, video games, movies. Again, we all have ownership here. We need to avoid speculation, let the investigation take its course. Talk only in facts. I encourage everyone to do what you can to not villainize law enforcement. We need them. They're parents, their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, just like us. They have a job just like us. It's just a much more stressful, high-risk job than I think we can even understand. Work at home and in your communities to strengthen the family unit and educate all, which I don't think we do, educate all on the proper behavior when engaged with law enforcement. Okay? You're both in a stressful situation that needs to be de-escalated. So what are those tools to help people de-escalate a stressful situation for both parties involved? You know, root cause investigation, the root cause is something that you remove, and by removing that, the event doesn't happen. And in these cases, that could be as simple as calling APD versus calling a respected aunt or uncle to come talk to the person. So my ask, I guess, of APD, of us, is how can we help maybe humanize or with the public relations of APD, and how can we help educate all and how we should properly act and help de-escalate these situations when we are engaged with APD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Yeah, thank you. So my fear in this is it's forward facing, that we have now at least 3 working groups on the assembly and between the administration and various parties pulling in different directions. One who has just stated, I want this done by April 2025 when the budget is implemented and we're going, and admitted that it was a very rapid timeline. And I fear that rushing in is going to create more problems, that our job as the assembly branch is, yes, to set policy and to be deliberative about our actions. I've heard as a theme from most members for the last 6 weeks that we need to allow the administration time to develop their proposals for all of the various entities within the municipality. And I am going to recommend that this body adopts that same approach to this question, because this is the most sensitive matter we are facing right now as a municipality. This is number one. This is beyond what the last hour was, the homeless crisis in our streets, because this is the loss of life and the power of the state. And so to me, the biggest risk is having all of these efforts going in all of these directions and not leaning into our kind of structure of power that has been granted to us through the charter, which in the ultimate kind of arrangement is the administration proposes, and then we take their proposal and we either accept it, amend it, or reject it. And so I believe that while it's fine and it's good that this committee is, because it's within its mission and we have set it up, tackling issues relating to public safety and public health, which this issue is squarely in the Venn diagram of those 2 issues, that we be very, very careful in pulling separately and we allow the administration the first round to establish a work plan that says this is how we're going to do it. There was a press conference last week. Here we are having a meeting to get details on that, but already now there is a proposal to completely transform and do it fast because it's what has to happen now. And I reject that. And I hope that what we do instead is hear from the experts, hear from our leadership, who is the executive branch, for how they would plan to execute this, to implement this plan and program and update our process. And then we, in reflection, tackle whether it's right or not and how we improve it. So because I want to lean into our expertise and not put myself in the role of the expert. And we, as members of the assembly, do kind of have a duty to hear from the public, have a duty to feel that pain and make sure that we are driving that the solutions that come from this process are going to address the problem that we are facing. But I would ask my peers to really think about allowing this administration the opportunity to set forth a program that we can take, and as opposed to having 3 or 4 separate programs developing and then try to figure out how to harmonize them. So that would be my approach.
Thank you. I have 2 more people in the queue. Let's try to be brief because I'd really like to end. But Ms. Brawley and then Mr. Volant.
Yeah, thank you. Putting a few additional comments on the table. First, I appreciate what's been said so far. For my part, I am interested in whatever it needs to look like, civilian oversight, whatever the term ends up being, that whatever we do works. Because what we have seen in a lot of communities is that there have been systems put in place, with good intentions that don't necessarily work a few years later. And so I think that is the charge to all of us, is whatever we do to make sure that it is effective and it is worth doing. And it is not just putting something into place for it to fail a couple years later. Because I think that has been the story of what used to be the Public Safety Advisory Commission, that it was formed with good intentions and it did not play out that way. So that's what I'm interested in, is what actually works. I appreciate Member Salt's comments. I don't agree with everything you said, but I appreciate the looking larger. And I will frame it less as kind of individual responsibilities or actions and more as systems. I'm interested in systems. And I see that there are several that are broken. And basically, and this is a message that we have brought to the legislature and the state for a long time, when other systems are not working, it all falls to our first responders and our law enforcement. And that is part of the problem. So I want to, again, I'm saying these things not instead of what we need to do, which is fix the problems that we have already talked about. I want to add other things to that conversation so that we make sure that we are focusing on that and really trying to solve, again, the broken systems. When we have a state that does not have a functioning safety net, that does not allow people to get food, that puts them out on the street because they cannot afford housing, all of those things cause crises in our community, and then those fall to law enforcement and first responders. And then we, the cities, pay for that, and the individuals, the communities pay for that. We have the issue of overflowing ERs. You mentioned the psych ER. That is a known problem, that we have a lack of mental health resources in this state. That is a state responsibility that they are dropping the ball on, and they have been for a long time. And in fact, we've seen many actions from this administration, in particular, the governor's administration, that actively are counter to us solving these problems. And again, I'm not saying that because the city doesn't have a role. It's that we should recognize that there are things that are failing around us that we are being asked to solve. And then that makes the job of solving our internal problems harder. And so as we think about our legislative program, as we think about continuing to advocate to the state, I continue to believe that we need to be strong in standing up for our city and for other local governments who are facing these issues, including policing issues. And then lastly, I will say, and again, not instead of solving local problems, but because part of the reason we are in this place is because of actions at the state that are trickling down to our city. The last thing is, I appreciate the comments on budget, the comparison of, what a civilian oversight entity would cost. And then also a lot of the things that you described, Chief Case, will require funding, I imagine. So I also want to, there's a couple of hard facts. One is that we have already granted a large raise to our police department, and it is already the largest department in our city, followed by the fire department. And I'm saying that not because I don't believe we shouldn't have done that, because we want to attract and retain people who keep that training, who are community minded, right? Who are in the job because they care and can financially do that job. But it is also true that the opportunity cost of that choice means that a lot of other funding is not available now because of the limitations of our operating budget. So that is another, again, separate issue, but I think it is important to acknowledge that as we talk about the kind of city we want to be, the kind of services we want to have, we are structurally unable to pay for those. And so that is a hard conversation we need to keep having. And to the extent that we have chosen to fund law enforcement already, that is also an opportunity cost, right? And so we need to be mindful of where else we can put resources to alleviate the burden on law enforcement, to alleviate the burden on first responders, and to effectively deliver services. So I recognize these are big picture issues that are swirling around this more specific issue of police oversight, accountability, keeping the community safe. But I wanted to make sure that those are on the record because all of these systems are not working well. And again, that is where they end up having the most impact. And then when our law enforcement is not working the way that it should, that has an impact on the community as well. So I look forward to continue to working on these specific issues, but we should also keep in mind how all of these other systems create the impacts that we are seeing today. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Voland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will try to make this brief. So while I can respect the admonitions of Chief Case and Chair Constant in terms of the damage of acting too quickly, I do have to push back a little bit. Number one, these are not new conversations in our community. These have been conversations since the mayor was an assembly member and since Chief Case was a deputy chief. The topic of civilian oversight is not new. Part of the frustration I think we're hearing from the community is how long it took to get body cameras and a body camera worn policy. So the community is not frustrated by rapid action. They are frustrated by very slow action and inaction. And so we have limited opportunities as assembly members to weigh in on these issues. And part of our job as elected officials is to be responsive to constituent concerns. Because of the Open Meetings Act, only in certain forums can we put our opinion out there. Otherwise, it's 3 members, no more than 3 members. So when we publish something in the ADN, we don't always have the opportunity to do so as a full body. So in terms of polling in separate directions, well, I'm going to put my thoughts out there, and I hope that it can be received well by my colleagues, and that we can get to consensus, and then we can work with the administration and the police department to get to a place of best practices and to restoring community trust in policing. But I think we need to be proactive, and so that's what I'll say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for being here, and thank you for your words, both to the assembly members and to the administration. Just in terms of before we move to public comment, 2 next steps that I know that this committee will be involved in. First, I do plan on using this as a forum to discuss civilian oversight, to discuss these topics, to explore them. And I think part of that exploration is time frame. Part of that exploration is budget. Part of that exploration is what would that look like, and what's it look like so it fits us here. Second is I know that there's a desire and need for more public conversation. And so I mentioned earlier holding a conversation on the 6th. I think this is the first of many that we need to have so that we have more opportunity for the public that's not in a small 3-minute segment, but for the public to actually come out and have real conversations about these issues. So with that, I'm going to move to public comment. I know there's probably a lot of folks in the audience who will want to speak. I would like to have, there's 3 representatives from the family of Easter Litlifa here. We'd like to make sure to give them the space first. And then we'll see where our time is. The way it'll work is that we'll have them come up. You'll sit here. You'll share your name for the record. There's a timer that will come up behind me that will give you a sense of your time so you can manage your own time. So, sir, if you'd like to come up and speak for whoever I'd like to be first. So just share your name for the record. You can sit in the chair right here and use that microphone. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Judy Lenu. I am with the Samoan Tribal Council of Alaska. I'm here to represent the community. We do have the family here, but they are silenced. They just want to come here and see what's going on and how this situation is being handled. As we come together as a community, we're really, really concerned about what has happened and how the city or the state of Alaska is handling this situation. We've waited for the body camera to be released, and up till now that hasn't happened. And I know you guys are took an oath, the police station or the authorities took an oath on, behalf to protect the city or protect the state. We get that. But a life has been taken. There's a lot of questions. We don't have the answers. And we don't want, just like what was discussed today, we don't want to be afraid to pick up that phone and call 911 to get the help that we need. We want to have a safe community. And we're here not to raise any hell, but something needs to be done. I do have Jeff here. He's also part of the Samoan Tribal Council of Alaska, and I'm going to go ahead and have him speak on our behalf.
So just in terms of our process, so you're completing your comments, is that
Yes.
right? Okay, that's great, because we'll start it over for you so that each person has sufficient time. So thank you for your comments. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you
Sir,
very
if you'd
much.
share your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jefferson Uta. I am also High Chief Alpha SA of the Samoan people, and I'm also a human rights defender. So I would also like to recognize that Mother of Easter, Leafa, is here. So thank you, Assembly members, Mayor LaFrance, and Chief. The Samoan population is the fastest growing in the state. As such, we also have our issues: crime rate, substance abuse, homelessness, mental health, poverty, and children in need. With these issues, we seek to work closely with the state to work through these issues, as we are with the Restorative Justice Program and many others. But we are here because of the shooting death of a minor, Easter Leafa. The Leafa family came for a better life, and as a guest of Alaska. To our shame, she will forever remember her loss in a tragic manner. But to also speak on behalf of our community, it was as the officer came and shot a child of every Samoan family in Alaska. We seek the body camera footage released. We seek the family to be able to visit the body of her loved one, Easter. Finally, we seek a grand jury investigation into the shooting death of Easter. None of these requests are unreasonable and should be granted in a timely manner. Our community is in mourning. We hope that you ask us to heal, and we thank you for our time.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Are there any? I originally had 3 for the family. Do we have anybody else from the family, or that you said? Okay, great. All right, we have time for probably 2 more. Sorry. Yes, if you'd like to. Hi, welcome. If you state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, Tafiliso Notoleafua, Executive Director for Pacific Community of Alaska. I just wanted to come and let you know that after speaking with the family, they will not be commenting today. So I would like this group to honor what the family has said. And so I just want to let you know that they will be not comment. All the comments that you just heard is from the Samoan Tribal Council. And then, of course, I'm just coming here to let you know that the family will not be commenting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then thank you so much. All right, I think we'll have time for one more. If you'd like to state your name for the record, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Patterson. I live in District 5. I owe you an apology. Thank you for actually saying something that made sense. I blame you. 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 I blame you and I blame you. We're not talking about blame. Knock it off. We're talking about blame. I also want to point out, too, what Assemblymember Rivera just said. When he says community organizations that connected him to NACOL, he's talking about the Party for Socialism and Liberation Anchorage. I know that because me and him and NACOL sat in a meeting together. That's the only reason why he knows about NACOL. The National Association for Civilian Oversight and Law Enforcement, we have already made secured an agreement with that organization of civilian oversight professionals. They want to help us develop a review model for this city. They're already down to do it. And I don't know why you're writing all this down, because we've sent you a white paper. We've literally produced a research paper on review boards, sourced from the DOJ, and NACOL. We sent the mayor it. I sent it yesterday to Ms. Clark. Amanda Moser will not respond to any of our emails, nor the assembly. We've also proposed the community compact, which is Assemblymember Constance worried about pulling in different directions. We've already proposed a multi-phase plan to bring in different stakeholders from the city, from faith groups, from communities to come together as a work group, decide how we're going to work together, get educated from NACOL, who says they already will help us with this, and then develop a model that we will introduce to the assembly and hopefully get it on the ballot to vote on it in April 2025. You all know this already. Stop pretending like you don't. It's an act. And you're doing this to pretend like you actually care. It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And it's not just this family, which I want to say with deepest condolences, I am sorry for your loss. This was totally preventable. And now a child is dead, which we have been telling you for months, for years. They're going to kill someone's child. They're going to kill somebody. And you all sit there with blank looks and do nothing. What about an independent investigation for all of the families? What about all of them? You are all some actors. You are liars. You are liars, and I blame all of you because we have been coming to these assembly meetings since 2020 and telling you all this is going to happen. APD is out of control. So don't sit here and act like, oh, we need to start doing these things now. You knew. You all knew. And then you sit here and act like you didn't. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. You can be upset all you want, Cameron. You know, because I've called you and you don't return my calls. It's disgusting. The only solution is an independent police review board. The key word being independent from him. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. I appreciate your time. We are adjourned.